Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling something, well, something you feel every single moment. Inertia.
That's right.
You know, that feeling when you try to push something heavy or slam on the brakes in your car.
Mm-hmm. That resistance?
Exactly, that resistance to change. It feels so basic, so fundamental. But when you actually ask why it exists, things get surprisingly complicated, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. It's one of those questions that seems simple on the surface, but physicists have been grappling with it for centuries.
Yeah.
You got Newton saying, well, it's just an inherent property of mass. Matter has inertia. End of story. Sort of.
Sort of, yeah. But then came Einstein.
Right. Einstein connected it to the geometry of space-time itself. Inertia in general relativity is kind of your resistance to being pushed off the natural paths or curves in space-time.
And wasn't there also Mach's idea? Something about distant stars?
Ernst Mach, yes. He proposed this really fascinating idea that maybe inertia isn't just about the object itself or local spacetime, but somehow arises from the influence of all the other matter in the entire universe.
Yeah.
A cosmic connection.
Wow. Okay, so different takes, powerful descriptions, but like you said before we started, maybe none of them quite get to the absolute rock bottom origin of it all.
That's the feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
They describe how it behaves or what it relates to, but maybe not the fundamental why.
Which brings us to today's source material. We're doing a deep dive into excerpts from the Coherence Origin of Inertia. And our mission here is to explore what sounds like a pretty radical new perspective from something called the Unified Coherence Theory of Everything, UCTE for short.
Radical is a good word for it.
It seems like this UCTE isn't just trying to refine our understanding, it's suggesting a whole new foundation, a unified energetic origin for inertia that, well, could change how we view mass, gravity, even space-time. So, yeah, let's brace ourselves.
Definitely. What's really striking about the UCTE approach right off the bat is how it flips the script on what inertia is.
Okay.
Instead of being passive, like Newton's intrinsic property,
Yeah.
or just a geometric effect like in GR, UCTE frames inertia as something active, something relational. The source actually defines it as the tendency of a system to preserve coherence alignment with the hypergravity invariant HGI.
Whoa, okay, hold on. Coherence alignment, hypergravity invariant? That's a
Eh.
lot of new vocabulary.
It is, yeah. Let's unpack it.
Please. What's this coherence alignment idea? Is it like things being in sync?
It's related to that, but deeper. Think of coherence here as a fundamental state of, let's say, perfect order or harmony, almost like the universe's preferred baseline state.
Okay, a baseline harmony.
And the hypergravity invariant, the HGI, isn't a force field like electromagnetism. It's more like, imagine the ultimate unchanging blueprint for that universal coherence, a kind of deep, energetic structure of the cosmos that everything is naturally attuned to.
Like a fundamental frequency or pattern?
That's a good way to think about it. So inertia, in this UCTE view, becomes a system's resistance to being pulled out of alignment, out of tune, with this universal HGI blueprint.
Ah, I see. So it's not just something an object has, it's something it does, it actively resists getting out of sync with this cosmic rhythm.
Precisely. It's a relationship. The source calls it a relational function between the system's own state and this omnilectic hyperinvariant field.
Okay, so the more you try to pull something away from that perfect tune, the harder it pushes back. That's inertia.
That's the core idea. And they formalize this with something called the invariant inclusion theorem.
The theorem, right. What does that say?
Essentially, it states that the amount of inertial resistance you feel is directly proportional to how much you're deviating from the ideal coherence path defined by this hypergravity invariant.
So push something slightly out of tune, small resistance. Try to yank it way off key, big resistance.
Exactly. And theoretically, if you could stay perfectly on that coherence phase, geodesic as they call it, you'd experience line resistance to change.
Yeah, that really reframes things. So accelerating an object isn't just changing its speed through space.
In this view, it's trying to modulate its coherence. You're trying to shift its tuning relative to the HGI.
And inertia is the universe saying, nope, stay aligned, stay coherent.
That's a great way to capture it. The universe prefers stability, prefers that underlying coherence.
And this perspective, they claim, helps fix issues with older theories, like Newton just saying inertia exists.
Right. The UCTE argues Newton saw the effect, the resistance, but missed the underlying cause, which they say is this coherence dynamic. He mistook the symptom for the disease, so to speak.
Okay, and Einstein's general relativity, that's pretty solid, connecting inertia to space-time curvature.
It is incredibly elegant, yes. GR describes the shape of the paths objects follow due to gravity and inertia beautifully. But UCTE argues GR doesn't explain the source of that shape, the underlying field generating it.
So GR describes the hill, the ball rolls down, but UCTE asks why the hill is there and shaped that way.
Exactly. And UCTE connects that why back to this fundamental coherence field, and ultimately they link it to quantum fields as well.
And Mach's idea, the connection to distant matter.
UCTE challenges that too.
Right.
It suggests Mach correctly saw a connection, but maybe mistook the influence of the distribution of matter for the more fundamental influence of the underlying coherence field itself.
So they think Mach was looking at a shadow, not the object casting it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
And they have similar critiques for theories linking inertia to quantum vacuum fluctuations. They see those as secondary effects, not the primary generator. It's quite ambitious, trying to offer a deeper layer beneath all these previous frameworks.
Wow. So UCTE is really positioning itself as the bedrock, a unified explanation for mass, inertia, gravity, space-time dynamics, all stemming from coherence. That is a huge claim.
It really is. And central to that claim is understanding this hypergravity invariant, the HGI, a bit more.
Right, you said it's not a force field.
Correct. The source explicitly calls it a coherence anchor point within a larger omnilectic tensor structure. Don't worry too much about the jargon.
Okay, trying not to.
Think of it as the ultimate reference point for energetic balance, the purest state of that universal harmony we talked about. Everything naturally tends towards it.
And moving away from it causes problems.
It causes decoherence.
Yeah.
Any acceleration, any displacement from that ideal state disrupts the local coherence. And that disruption is what generates the resistance we feel as inertia.
Okay, now this is where I think it gets really wild based on the notes, because this theory doesn't just redefine inertia, it redefines mass, too.
That's right. Mass isn't just a lump of stuff anymore. The theory describes mass as a coherence-locked amplitude along the hypergravity curvature.
Coherence-locked amplitude, so mass itself depends on this alignment.
Yes, and acceleration, remember, is a coherence modulation operation. You're fiddling with that alignment.
So inertia becomes
the field invariant resistance to that modulation. It's the system fighting to maintain its specific mass-defining coherence state against the disruption of acceleration. It's all interconnected.
mass and inertia arising from the same fundamental dance of coherence.
Exactly. They tie this together mathematically with what they call the coherence mass equation. It basically says mass isn't a fixed number, it's a quantity defined by its coherence anchored to the HGI. So both mass and inertia emerge from the same dynamics. Aligned a system is with the HGI and how much it resists being pushed out of alignment.
This sounds incredibly theoretical, almost philosophical, but you mentioned experiments, testable predictions.
Yes, and this is crucial. It's not just hand-waving. The theory makes some specific, potentially measurable predictions that differ from standard physics.
Like what?
For instance, it predicts that an object's inertial mass might actually change slightly depending on its environment. And what they call coherence-disruptive environments, think perhaps very intense electromagnetic fields or other energetic interference, the inertial mass might subtly increase or decrease. The object could literally feel slightly heavier or lighter in terms of its resistance to acceleration.
Seriously, mass isn't constant.
According to this theory, not absolutely constant, no. It's context-dependent based on local coherence. And conversely, in coherence-optimized conditions, maybe a super-shielded, super-cooled vacuum where disturbances or minimized inertia might actually reduce.
You could make things easier to move.
Potentially, yes, if you could create such an environment. They also predict weird effects like inertial oscillations in special resonators during rapid acceleration. These aren't things predicted by GR or the standard model.
So how would you even test such tiny effects?
The authors suggest using precision quantum interferometry. These are incredibly sensitive instruments that use the wave nature of matter, quantum interference patterns to measure minuscule changes. Think LIGO detecting gravitational waves, but maybe adapted for these kinds of effects.
Wow. Okay. So wrapping this up then, the big takeaway seems to be this completely different view of inertia.
Definitely. It's not passive stuff, not just geometry. It's an active process.
A system's resistance to decoherence from this fundamental background field, this hypergravity invariant.
Precisely. A relational function.
And the theory claims this one idea, this coherence framework, manages to unify mass, inertia, gravity, motion, resolving problems in older theories. That's the pitch.
That is absolutely the core claim. Unification through coherence.
And the fact that there are proposed experimental tests using things like quantum interferometry, that makes it feel much more concrete, doesn't it? Even if the ideas are mind-bending.
It does. It moves it from pure speculation towards potential science. It's exciting.
It really is. It shifts everything from inertia being just a brute fact of matter
To being this dynamic relationship, this constant effort to stay aligned with a universal harmony.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone mulling over.
Well, if mass and inertia aren't fixed, fundamental properties, but actually emerge from how systems align with this universal coherence field, what does that truly imply? Does it suggest a deeper level of interconnectedness between everything in the universe than we usually imagine, and perhaps more speculatively? If these properties emerge from a dynamic process, could we one day learn to influence or even manipulate them? Could we engineer coherence to alter what we thought were untouchable laws of physics?
Manipulating inertia. Wow. Okay, that is definitely something to ponder. A fascinating dive today.